right now in this world, there's a lot of collective grief because of the state of the world. And I think grieving can look like people sharing a meal together.
When Reese died and my dad died, it's like being able to just sit among people that, like my friends and family that knew them. When you lost your home, there was your neighbors, your friends, Altadita, the town.
Doing it together was the vine that pulled us out of the quicksand. And I think with grieving with kids, nothing crushes you more than, what your children are feeling, right? So sadness, anger, whatever. If Logan says, I really miss the pool that we had. If I said, oh, but I'm gonna buy you a new one. Oh, but what about the oceans of Costa Rica? I'm minimizing.
Right.
So to go there with her would be, yeah, I hear you and I see you and I'm sorry that you're feeling that way, instead of say, but.
This episode is sponsored by our partners at BetterHelp. We talk a lot on this show about what gets in the way of us showing up as our best selves. A lot of it comes down to us needing to do the inner work. Therapy is one of the best places to do that. BetterHelp connects you with a qualified therapist online and makes it easy to switch if the match isn't right. When life feels overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and receive 10% off at betterhelp.com/loveready. That's betterhelp.com/loveready.
Today, I'm so excited to be joined by my friend, the angry therapist, John Kim, author of Breakup on Purpose, Single on Purpose, and I used to be a miserable fuck. John is one of my greatest teachers because, he's a therapist, right? But he's also so honest and frank with how he's lived his life. And he's not afraid to say, this is how I used to be, and this is who I am now. Today, we are going to talk about all things love and grief, endings. John lost his house in the Altadena fires and has since moved with his family to Costa Rica. So we're going to talk about rebuilding after loss and talk about the bigger question of where does love go when it ends. So I'm looking forward to today. Hello, John Kim.
Hello, we should try to do this in Spanish since we're both trying to learn Spanish.
Oh, sí.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
The whole interview will be about 45 seconds.
Bienvenidos,
Vámonos.
John.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Oh, estoy muy emocionada to see you.
I'm having a moment sitting on this couch with you because, and we can get into it because we're talking about grief and the how love changes. You were a huge catalyst in my life. I say you were an angel. And then from that came this, which is
here we are.
Also about love and grief and spiritual stuff.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm glad that we can have all the talks, John, in this conversation. There's no holds barred. We can flow, right? Because there's a lot.
There's a lot. There's layers. We can splatter paint.
Today's episode was dedicated to talking about grief and endings. And where does love go when it ends?
Yeah. I don't think love ends.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. I think it changes form.
Me too.
Yes. I think if you look at love like energy, I think it changes form. I think relationships expire. But even when relationships expire, I think love changes form. But I don't believe in this idea that love ends. Because then it also means that love is limited. And I don't believe it's limited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with your evolution into the angry therapist and how that was, you became a therapist after your divorce.
Yes.
Your first marriage.
Love ending was the beginning.
Yes. Isn't that amazing, right? Like the saying,
it is amazing.
When one door closes, another opens.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah. Married at 29, she walked into our restaurant. I had a moment where I saw her and I heard angels. I said, I'm going to marry that girl.
Yeah, really, eh?
She came in to apply. So I was actually her boss for a minute.
Yes.
So because of that, we were friends. And then I think it was like 4 years later, after establishing a foundation of friendship, got married, ran toward the picket fence, became quote unquote Christian.
Oh, really? I didn't know that part of the story.
She was from Oregon, Christian. And so I thought to be a good husband, I'm going to go to church on Sundays. And I thought that was it. I found my person.
Yeah.
Everything else is extra. I don't need friends. I don't need, and now I need to go establish myself as far as I was a screenwriter at the time. She was the son I revolved around.
Yes.
Put her on a pedestal. 5 years into the marriage, she kind of started working a lot, kind of blew up as an actress. I did not. And so I was the husband with the dishwashing gloves, waiting at home, picking up, taking the dog for a walk. And I always say that I went from her mouth to her nipple because we started kind of as partners.
Oh, yeah.
And because of life and because of my own insecurities, I became more her son. So that contributed to the relationship, among other things. And then at 35, she wanted a divorce. And it came out of nowhere, or felt like it did. When people say it came out of nowhere,
Yes.
it really did not come out of nowhere, but I wasn't aware, so.
You weren't aware of the gravity of her disconnect.
Yes, because
Right?
I was such a boy, I didn't know anything.
Because she probably was telling you, I'm unhappy, John.
Yes, so it's like the sixth sense when you replay it back and you're like, oh, he was dead here, he was dead here, he was dead. So there are moments I see now where I was like, oh, I just wasn't listening, or maybe I didn't want to see it, but the drift was happening all along. So within 5 years, the drift, we've swam too far to turn back. And and it's funny because the way that she said it, it was on Skype, was brand new, this whole like Skype Zoom thing. And she was on a movie set and she said she wanted a separation, just to separate and listen, we'll just, we'll work on things. But can you do me a favor? Can you be out of the house when I get back? I was like,
Oh, boy.
what? But I thought, okay, if I do this, I could actually do something for her that I've never done before. I want to give this to her. So I'm on Craigslist, find a roommate. I leave. I thought I was coming back home like 2 weeks later. And then she's like, oh, let's get a divorce. She didn't know how to say, I want a divorce.
Yeah.
So she started with the separation and then it became a divorce. And then I was on Craigslist looking for a roommate. And that was the end and then also the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about just how you decided to go become a therapist.
I was talking to my own therapist.
So you actually had a therapist. Was
Yes.
it before you separated from
Yes,
her?
and during.
Yep.
I was curious about self-help. I was not happy. I was writing to sell something because if I sold that thing, then it would make me a better husband. I was just obsessed with like selling the $1 million screenplay.
Yes.
Because then I would
Because
get.
then you're going to be
Yeah.
the man that
Yeah.
you're making it, right?
And then, the whole poster of LA, the house in the hills and the horseshoe-shaped driveway and the Porsche Range Rover combo, like it all came
Yeah.
with this, just go sell the. So I would sit in coffee shops and write. I wouldn't leave until I wrote 10 pages, which is like 10 hours, 8 hours a day. Had no
Wow.
friends.
Wow.
So I just, what I was doing though, and I didn't notice at the time because I didn't know I would be writing self-help books, I was laying tracks to write very fast. So I could go into a coffee shop, I just put in thousands of hours writing screenplays. They didn't sell. And so I was talking to my therapist and he said, if you can't do that, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, if I can't move people like by the masses in that way through that art form, I want to do it one at a time. I want to do what you're doing. And I told him, I think I'll be happy just having an office, making 6 figures a year, tucking my shirt in, coming in with my latte. And you know what he said to me? You're never going to make 6 figures a year as a therapist. And I remember that I was thinking like, what? Like, why do you say that? And this is called projection. He was projecting the fact that he couldn't make 6 figures
Yeah.
a year into me. But I remember that moment and thinking, I'm going to prove you wrong. I didn't know how or what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But I did prove him wrong, but not in a way. This is before social media. This is before anything. So what he thought was just like insurance, face-to-face clients.
Yeah.
Like that's not
like
going to happen
most
for you.
therapists
Yeah.
aren't making
Yeah.
6 figures.
So he
That's what
discouraged
said.
me. He discouraged me to do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm studying in school, studying to be a therapist.
So you went all this time. You're writing, and the angry therapist somehow emerged
From a blog, yes.
Because you were writing a blog, but you were like full of like just anger and just resentment.
I was angry. Yes, for sure. I was angry because I was unhappy. But I also thought it was funny that a therapist was angry
Yeah.
because then it meant that the therapist was also human.
Right.
So I didn't know that I was accidentally humanizing myself. So on Tumblr was before social media. I started a blog, and because I had a lot of time and no friends, it was a diary. I just made public. I didn't think anyone would read it. And then I just went on my Eat, Pray, Love journey. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I discovered that the system was broken. So that was the other wrench. It's like going after something you're passionate about and then realizing, oh, I have a problem with this whole system and how they train people, you know.
And so did you kind of discover that while you were going to school, John?
Yeah, the webcam had just come out and they were saying that you can't use a webcam.
Oh.
It's like, why? You could connect with people all around the world, but no, only with people in your state. And then they presented therapists as kind of like clinicians. And I thought, man, I this doesn't feel right to me. So I tried to do all that. I worked in treatment centers. I tucked my shirt in. And it didn't, I felt very, I felt claustrophobic. I felt controlled. Restricted. And so the promise I made to myself after my divorce was I'm never going to be who I used to be, meaning I'm only going to be honest now. From now on, because I had nothing. So when you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. So it's easy to make promises to yourself. When you have a lot, it's harder to make these promises to yourself, right? Because people love you. People around you may not be down with this promise, you know? And like you might lose important people, right? But I didn't have anything. So I said, because I'm at my rock bottom, I'm going to be honest with myself. That's my promise to myself.
Yeah.
And so here I am trying to be a therapist, and it didn't feel honest to me. No. And eventually I got fired from a treatment center for bringing DVDs to do cinema therapy using movie clips as interventions because the stuff in the filing cabinet were generic and horrible. And so she was scared of that because it was different, and she fired me.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of me kind of going rogue and seeing clients kind of on my own terms.
So you talk about, like in your book, A Miserable Fuck, right? You talk about being emotionally unavailable in your marriage.
Yeah.
So what does it look like to be emotionally unavailable? What kind of behaviors, patterning?
It means to be logical. It means to see arguments as playing chess. It means to try to prove that you're right. To be emotionally available to me means to sit with, to come with, to look inward, to read energy and how someone's feeling instead of what's on the surface, which is an argument, just using words.
Right.
Yeah.
You're getting to the heart of it.
Yes. And if I could rewind in that marriage, if I had the capacity, I would have felt her nervous system. I would have felt the distance. I would have felt so many things that weren't just words. And then also she didn't have the ability to actually express herself.
Right.
And so I would have caught those things and I would have tried to meet her there instead of logically, win arguments.
Something you've taught me over the years, John, is that it's about giving yourself grace, right? It's like looking back on our lives and being able to say, that's who I was then. This is what I knew. And so this is how I was taught to relate, or this is the operating system I was operating under, right? Going through your divorce and like pretty much hitting rock bottom, like you said, like you weren't doing a lot of work, although you were working your butt off writing in coffee shops. Right. Going back to school, you're angry, you're writing these blogs, you don't have friends. It's like you're pretty much like, holy shit, my life has to restart here. It's a restart, whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
And so how do you start actually, like, were you learning to be emotionally available, like all those tools and the skills through school? And then you started applying them?
Yes.
Like how does somebody go from not being like that aware emotionally, good in relationship, to actually moving the needle and being better?
I think first I thought, okay, I'm the product of something, right? And so I looked at my parents and I see two people, old school Korean, who grew up in poverty, war-stricken, in fight or flight mode, came to America, had two kids, worked every day for 16 hours. And the love that I received was, I'm going to buy you Levi's and skateboards, and then that will make you American. And then what they modeled for me was sleeping in separate rooms, dad drinking a lot, alcoholic, mom having no life or sense of self. I've never seen my parents kiss.
Yeah.
I've seen them joke around, like my dad would grab my mom's hand, she would pull away, but I've never seen
affection, like
affection,
true.
intimacy. I love you.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was go get good grades. We're here because of you. You know, there was never any kind of like, you're a good person. There was no I love yous. There was no.
And so what about affection between you, and, like your mom and your dad and you and your sibling? Do you have a sister?
I have a brother.
Your brother.
Yeah.
So what about that? Like, were they hugging and touching you and kissing you?
None of it.
None of it. So how would you know to
exactly.
be right? Like
right,
maybe
so,
through movies or like you
yeah,
know what I mean? If you're not, you don't have that.
So, but that's how compassion enters in, because
Yes.
now that I pull back and see where I came from, oh, of course, as a 10-year-old Korean boy trying to adjust to this culture, you know, America and fitting in, I felt very alone, but I wasn't given any emotional milk. I was given fast food, cool jeans, you know.
That's such a way to put it, John. Emotional milk.
Yeah, emotional milk.
Wow.
Yeah. These days, emotional almond milk, maybe. But
Oat milk.
It makes sense to me that at 25 or 30, if that's who I was, that's the person I became was angry, controlling, jealous, you know, all the stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to be cut at the legs to
actually see differently.
To examine the black box, like how did the plane go down? What was your part in it? You know? Yeah.
So your angry therapist journey started
with the divorce. Yeah.
Through your divorce.
Yeah.
And then through that, you wrote.
I used to be a miserable fuck.
I used to be a miserable fuck.
Yeah.
And then Single on Purpose.
Single on Purpose. Before I used to be a miserable fuck, there was another book called The Angry Therapist. That was with Parallax. That was my first book. And then I used to be a miserable fuck. Single on Purpose. It's Not Me, It's You, co-written by my wife. Breakup on Purpose.
I loved that book. I mean, I love your books. That book really helped people see that there's definitely different forms of breakups.
Yeah.
And our grief is different in the face of how we, in the form of our breakups.
Right. Yeah. I don't understand why we use the word breakup as kind of the blanket of all, and when it's, you know, because if you're with someone and both people mutually want to no longer be with each other, that's a very different breakup than if you're blindsided or if you walk in on your partner sleeping with someone else. Like, there's so many different types of breakups. What's prescribed for each breakup should be different, you know? So in that book, I talk about there's all the different types of breakups. I think I named 7. A divorce is also very different than if you had met someone and you guys dated for 3 months. You know, because with divorce can come kids, can come property, can come like there's so many other elements, right?
Yeah. So how do we explain how people grieve differently through breakups? Like, let's say you're with somebody, like I was talking to our colleague about this before, around like she was with her partner for somebody she was dating for 8 months and grieved for 3 years, right?
Right.
Whereas somebody could be with somebody for 15 years and it doesn't take them long to grieve.
So the person that was with someone for 15 years, even though they're technically together, that relationship might have ended 4 years in.
Exactly.
So they've actually been grieving. So it depends on where you start the grieving process, right? There's a lot of people in marriages that are dead and they've been grieving forever, even though on paper they're still married, you know? Also, I think intensity matters, right? Like, if you have a relationship that is super intense, it could have been a magical summer, that may be a more difficult breakup than a 10-year relationship because it was so intense, because the imprint was so big, right? This is why, like, high school love will always remember our first breakup.
Yes,
you know,
because the imprint.
So because our hearts were powdered snow.
Oh, that's so good.
So in high school, oh my God, we all remember those broken hearts. Yeah,
our hearts were powdered snow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear. I know that your fire burned in the Altadena fires, and that house, there, your house.
Yeah.
That, what did I say?
You said your fire burned.
Oh gosh, your house burned.
Yeah.
How devastating! And just can you tell us about that experience?
Another grief.
Major loss, and the process of like what was that? What were you thinking the day that you found out?
It's surreal.
Yeah.
We saw some fires like miles away, small fires. It was like 7 p.m. And Vanessa was going crazy. I was like, you're not from LA. It's good. Fires, earthquakes, it's common. Nothing's going to happen. And she's like, I don't feel safe. We got to go stay at a hotel. I was like, all right, we'll do that. But it's fine. I've been here for my entire life. Our house is fine. So we go to a hotel, wake up in the morning.
Thank goodness that you listened to her. Right?
Yes, for sure.
Her intuition was speaking.
Her intuition, yes. And I want to give her credit
Yelling.
for that because I probably don't. And we didn't take anything because we didn't think anything was going to happen. So just computer, our daughter, and we went. Woke up in the morning and around 10 a.m., because we left with neighbors, we're like, all right, dads, go check on the house and let's get breakfast and go back home. So
so you were with some friends too?
our next door neighbors. We all went together.
You went together.
Yeah. All the hotels were all getting full, so we got them a room. And we're driving up the hill, our neighbor George and I. It was like apocalypse. There's no one around. And I was like, oh, this is strange. And we kept going up. And houses were still on fire. And I was like, holy shit, no firefighters, no cops.
Really?
Yeah, just smoke and fire. And I was like, oh, this is different. I've never experienced this. But our house is fine, I'm sure. These houses are on fire, but turn the corner and we reach our street and every house is gone.
You're just saying, it's not our street. That is our street, but that's not our street.
Yeah, and so you're in the state of shock.
Of course.
And then you're like, I have nothing. And then, the tears come. So I was bawling hysterically. So George got out of his car. He went to his lawn. He dropped to his knees and he started crying. So it's two older men on this cul-de-sac. All the houses are burned down. No one around, no firefighters, smoke, 10 a.m. on a random Monday. Bawling. We're we're howling. And I was like, I didn't think about insurance. I didn't think about anything. I didn't think about, I just thought we lost everything. What am I going to do? What am I going to tell my family? We go back to the I got my mask on. We go to the hotel. They're all waiting for us to eat breakfast and go back home. Open the door and I can't even speak. And I think as a man, I felt like I finally contributed something,
Yeah.
I finally have a family. I finally have this little piece of land. I wrote some books and looking your wife and daughter in the eye and although it wasn't my fault, to say that we don't have a home anymore is, it's it's one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, so I was bawling and my wife just felt anger. She didn't hit, she wasn't grieving yet. She was in the anger. It's crazy. I've never experienced that kind of loss before. Yeah. So that happened. And then hopping around different Airbnbs. And then our friends were like, what are you guys doing here? I was like, what do you mean? I've been in LA my entire life. Where else do you go?
Yeah.
Like you guys should go somewhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You had friends, like more than one?
Well, a lot of friends couldn't go anywhere because of work, brick and mortar businesses, because my wife and I can work remote. Like, what are you doing here?
Wow.
So we went to Costa Rica. It made sense.
That's amazing to me that you had friends that said to you, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Sometimes people surprise you, right?
Well, what's more amazing is you realizing that there wasn't any other options. So it reminds me of the boiling frog, where you've been in this water for so long, you don't know that you're boiling. The fires, I feel like once the fires have happened and I started grieving, I realized, I've been a boiling frog here in Los Angeles.
Really? Is that really what you realized?
Yeah. I felt like all the things that I should have, would have, could have done, like travel,
Yeah.
go to Korea, go whatever, never happened because I was here just trying to chase shiny things and too scared. But then your house burns down and then you realize, oh, nothing's promised and life is short. It's now time to go do some shit. And so our friends gave us that kind of like held up that mirror to us and said, we can't leave because we have to go to work.
Wow.
You guys can work anywhere. What a privilege. It's like that scene in Good Will Hunting with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, because Matt Damon's gifted. Ben Affleck's a construction worker. And he's like, what are you still doing here? One of the happiest days of my life will be when I come knocking on your door in the morning and you're not there. It was like that. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, fuck. We almost owe it to our friends. And so we left. And when we left.
Can I ask you, did Vanessa feel the same way?
No. And that's what's interesting. And bringing it back to relationships and marriage, it affected her more. I started thinking way too fast. Oh, now we could travel. I started seeing silver linings too fast.
Oh, yeah.
It was too soon.
She's like, hello.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we could turn the house around.
John.
Yeah, we could build this. We could build a second story. She was grieving. She had more things that I did. Personal things like from grandparents and I mean, I lost a motorcycle and posters and stuff, my ice plunge, but I didn't have a lot of sentimental stuff. She lost, a doll from when she was 12, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I definitely moved on faster than her. And I think that can make someone feel alone in their marriage.
Oh,
do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
We grieve differently.
We do grieve differently.
And if you don't grieve with your partner, you can be grieving around your partner, or someone can grieve at you, meaning like you should be where I'm at.
Oh, yeah.
Why aren't you crying? And so I think if you don't accept the fact that we can all grieve differently and give people space for that, couples can drift. This is what happens when you lose a child. When you lose a child, couples don't survive that because they're grieving so different. And then people start to feel very alone, And so us losing our house, for a minute there, I did feel drift and I felt guilt. Like, I'm seeing too many silver linings.
Like you're fast forward. You're already in the future. You're living in Costa Rica. You're surfing, and she's like, "We just lost our house."
Yeah.
Like, I need to be sad about this. Right.
So that was happening.
So how did you come to a place where you were able to, come together on that? Was it just like a lot of conversation and being like empathy for where she was at, and she had empathy for you. Like, how did you? Yeah,
I think it's kind of a foundation to any relationships, and generally in love, whether it's intimate or friendship or any kind of love, is accepting not only who someone is, but where they're at.
Yes.
Right? So if she wasn't where I was at, I have to still accept that, not try to pull her. Hey, look at all the things that are, not trying to like convince her of silver linings or where we are because of it, or this new life we can build. Because that would be pushing and rushing, right? It would be more like, let me come down with you and join you here. I may not be there, but I want to support you in your grieving and what you've lost. I feel like she had more closer friends than I did here, right? Stuff like that. She also just started to get comfortable with LA, where I'd been here my entire life and I was kind of ready to leave, right? Oh. So we're in different places. And then for her to also like meet me where I'm at and it doesn't make you a monster that you're now taking up surfing and shaving your head and trying to create a new life. That's where you're at. And if that's honest to you, then maybe I'll get there one day, but I can also not be mad at you for being there with your grieving process, Yeah. I think that's what eventually connected us. And then people like you, who were angels, and we called and talked, and we started a GoFundMe, and people contributed. And that felt, wow, I've never felt that kind of love before. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, the amount of
you're just like, wow, people, like maybe even strangers or people you didn't really know that well are just strangers. Like giving. And that's love. That is love. Yeah, it's people think it's just money. It's not money. It's not money. It is, that is love in action.
It wasn't the money at all. It was, the person that brought over a pastry.
Yeah.
Because she was thinking about us, or some socks, or, whatever. It wasn't just like cash donations. It was the heart behind people thinking of you, and then the rallying of a community, friends saying, how can I help you? It's interesting that when we had the least, I felt like I had the most.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Because in LA, you could feel very alone. You could have a lot of things and feel very alone. But when we lost our house, the wraparound was something I've never felt before. And I was like, wow, we have people who care about us. You know?
Wow.
Yeah. And you were one of them.
Well, I'm so happy that I was able to be a part of this.
Yeah.
We're friends, so of course.
Yeah. And I also believe, I believe in angels. I believe in collisions. I believe in people who kind of meet each other spiritually, and maybe it was from a previous life. I believe in things that I can't see.
Me too.
And especially if there's a collision and things happen kind of seamlessly with little effort, I just feel like, oh, this is bigger than us. So
it was meant to be.
there was a lot of that happening.
This episode is sponsored by our partners at BetterHelp. You know, over the years, I've spent so much time with therapists and researchers and relationship experts. And what I've learned is that the people who do the inner work genuinely love differently. And you know what that means? That means that we can learn how to love better. There are skills. BetterHelp is a company that makes this possible. They have qualified therapists online, over 30,000 of them, matching to your needs. More than 6 million people have taken that step, and you can switch anytime at no extra cost. When life feels overwhelming, therapy can often help. Sign up and you'll receive 10% off at betterhelp.com/loveready. That's betterhelp.com/loveready.
So, John, let's talk about collective grief, because when you lost your home, there was your neighbors, your friends, Altadena, the town, you all lost your homes.
Yeah.
What was that like to experience that together, and what did that look like with collective grief?
It was, so collective grief, doing it together was the vine that pulled us out of the quicksand. If it was just me, my wife, and daughter alone going through this process, it would be a lot more devastating than it was. So every time we come to LA, we actually all meet, and we don't have to revisit the past and talk about, like, you know, how big the flames were, but just in a kind of a communal sharing a meal and just talking about life.
Yes.
That's grieving. That can be grieving. You know, I think a lot of people think grieving means tissues and sorrow and, you know, heads bowed. Right now in this world, there's a lot of collective grief because of the state of the world. And I think grieving can look like people sharing a meal together. I think grieving can look like creatives coming together to create a podcast episode. I think grieving could look like so many things. You know, it doesn't have to be just discussing what happened. It's more about, I think, creating a space for people to be themselves and to show themselves and to feel what's happening with them and to be accepted by that container. I think that's very healing. You know, I think as humans, that's how we operate. Like, we're not meant to do life alone.
Right.
So we're not meant to grieve alone.
No, we're not.
I think the world is collectively grieving.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about Logan? How did she handle losing, you know, how did she grieve? And the kids.
Yeah.
Because you know, when it first happened, you were staying in Airbnbs together and as families.
Yeah.
That was a great idea, to stay together and come together so that it wasn't just the three of you.
Yeah. Man, and we just kind of naturally, instinctively said that let's all just stay together. But I think it was the smartest thing we did was to all jump into a minivan and play Holiday Road, the vacation song, and be with each other wherever. Wow. And as we were hopping around, you know, from Ojai to, you know, all the different parts of LA. And I think with grieving with kids, first time being a dad, nothing crushes you more than, you know, what your children are feeling, right? So sadness, anger, whatever. And so you got to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
And not try to take things away from them or try to tell them their truth. So a lot of, I think, mistakes is if Logan says, I really miss the pool that we had, or the you know, the way that our garage was set up, or I miss the ice plunge and stuff. if I said, oh, but I'm going to buy you a new one. Oh, but what about the oceans of Costa Rica? I'm minimizing.
Right.
So to go there with her would be, yeah, like that. That must be sad for you, what you missed. Or, the coffee shops we went to in Altadena, or whatever she misses, to meet her there and say, I hear you and I see you, and I'm sorry that you're feeling that way, instead of say, but I'm going to buy you this, or but,
right.
because then it takes away from her truth. Meeting people where they're at, I think, is collectively grieving.
It is.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, John, around like we grieve in community.
Community.
It's such a healing when you're when we're with other people. Like I think when Reese died and my dad died, it's like being able to just sit among people that, like my friends and family that knew them, and cry together and tell stories, and you're laughing. Like that's all grief.
Yeah.
Like you're being able to like celebrate their life and be like that, like talking about their lives is it's such a healing. Like, grief is so varied.
Yeah.
And so necessary.
Yeah. I think that's important, to not define grief as let's all get in a huddle and cry.
Yeah.
It can be that, but it also can be so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does it mean that heartbreak lives in the body? And, I understand that feeling. We've all had a broken heart. Yeah. Like, right?
Yeah.
We've all felt that, just like absolute heartbreak. And if emotions like scientifically only last, it's like last 90 seconds, let's say, to feel a feeling. When your heart's broken, it's broken.
Yeah.
And what does that feel like? How do we actually heal our hearts?
I struggle with the word heartbreak.
Yeah.
I think we should redefine that. I almost want to say it's heart release. The idea that a heart shatters to me is atraumatic, and it feels like, okay, now we're stuck picking up the pieces of something and we have to glue it back together, and might not be as strong or whatever. It doesn't feel hopeful to me. But heart release is different, because I feel like we lost love, and now it's kind of time to release that love. And I learned this by accident. That's not a logical mental process. It's like a whole body experience. So after my divorce, the first thing I did is I bought a motorcycle, because I told myself, before I start dating anyone and they say no, I'm going to buy one right now. I've got a small window.
So you have one.
Everyone said no. Growing up, everyone I've ever dated, you're not getting a motorcycle. My parents, so I had a small window. So when I was single, I went and bought a motorcycle, and I didn't notice at the time, but riding my motorcycle, hugging canyons in Malibu, just like how Keanu Reeves just is always in LA riding his bike. It became my horse. And that did a lot of heart releasing. Then I found CrossFit, and I started working out, and that did a lot of heart releasing. So releasing.
You didn't realize it, but
I didn't realize it.
Your body was like through the physical.
Yes. Through the physical, releasing pain. Also, creating space for flow states and joy, and so now after my house burned down, I've been gravitating towards surfing. Yeah. And in the water, it's become my church, where I am now releasing. So it's not about putting the pieces of your heart together. It's about heart release, a whole body somatic experience when you're grieving.
So when you say that you are surfing and you're grieving in the water, like, do you go in? Do you think you think about it? Are you consciously releasing, or you just know that this is going to?
I check in with my body and tell myself that I'm not just trying to stand up on board. So it's almost like I give myself permission, and also make a conscious choice that this is going to be a form of therapy. When we were talking about my house, and I started to cry, there's a moment where I gave myself permission to be quiet and allow that space, or to not hide it with words. So I think it's like, and that kind of falls under the umbrella of your relationship with yourself. A lot of people don't even allow themselves to grieve. A lot of people will like start, oh, I'm going to cry. And then and so giving yourself permission, And so I think that alone is the conscious choice. So when I go in the ocean, I'm not like focused on how many waves I'm going to try to ride. This is an hour for myself, and it's going to be therapeutic. And I may have fun, I may cry, I may get scared. I mean, it's all part of it, you know?
Like you said, there's a lot of people that don't want to feel, John.
Yeah.
They don't.
Logical. Yeah.
And is it because what are people telling you about that? How they just don't want to feel the pain?
I don't think we've put in enough reps. I think we live in a world where to feel something means you're not being productive, or you need to move on, or it makes you weak. I think especially with men, right? And I think there's a misconception that to feel something means you have to lock yourself in a room and just start crying. So I felt on a motorcycle. I felt through barbells. I felt through permission. And then these days I'm feeling through creative work like this, and I'm feeling through surfing, and I'm feeling through walking on the beach and just taking the sunset, you know?
Yeah.
But I think it all starts with permission.
Permission.
Giving yourself permission and the intention to have that experience, you know? Yeah.
So you host retreats.
Yeah.
You have been doing this for years, and a lot of your retreats are with men.
Yes.
And so how are you helping men to relate better, to grieve?
You know, what's interesting is I never set out to do men's work. I never wanted to do men's work. Men actually activate me. The universe keeps putting me in front of men. Also, I think using my story as kind of a Trojan horse, so men can talk about these things in a way that's more relatable. So I feel like the universe has had put me in jeans and t-shirts and got on motorcycles and lifting barbells and eating donuts, because then men could relate with that.
Yeah.
And then through that, now let's have some honest conversations. So I think that's how I got into men's work. But I have resistance to men because of my own issues, because I am also a man, because it's also hard for me to look at my own shit. A lot of men are confronting to me, you know? But I feel like then that means I need to lean into that. So that's kind of how it all started. Working in nonprofit with boys who were abused and alcoholics and drug addicts, they either wanted to fight me or be me. So it started there. Yeah. And then realizing we live in a fatherless nation. So either dad's not home, or he's home but he's emotionally absent, which was the common thread with thousands of kids. And that shifted something in me. That gave me a cape, and that made me realize, okay, well, this is your work, you know? So that's how the whole thing started. And so
you're helping men become more emotionally mature and like aware.
Yes, but
right, and vulnerable.
It's hard for me to say that I'm helping men, because I don't position myself that way. It also feels kind of arrogant. Also, I think generally men don't want to be helped or told what to do. So I feel like whatever I'm doing, if men can relate, that's great, and there's going to be ripple. And I also love men as much as I'm confronted by them. I'm very protective of men, you know, but I don't feel that I'm out helping men.
No,
that doesn't.
It doesn't resonate.
No, you know who I use as an example, like Keanu Reeves, right? He's never preachy. He's like the dude sitting on the park eating a sandwich, and he's also very generous, and like he's just kind of living this life that feels honest to him.
Yeah.
But I have learned more from the way he has lived than, say, someone at a seminar behind the podium telling me how I should live my life.
It's just modeling, right?
A lot of it, I think, is modeling. And by modeling, I just mean trying to be honest with myself more than pointing a finger. There's so much of that on social media. This is what this is what you need to do as a man. This is how you need to step up. This is how you have to, you know, and sometimes that's needed, I'm sure, but that's not my approach.
Yeah.
You have a boy. How do you let him grieve whatever he's going through?
You know, Evan is very present in everything that is going on with him. He is like a pure, like angel in human form, that little boy. And if he's sad, he just cries. If he's upset, he'll just be like if he's happy, he smiles. Like my son's nonverbal.
So he's teaching you.
He's teaching me. Yeah. So like I just know what's going on with, like, we just have to look at his face and we'll know what's going on with him, Like if he wants a cuddle, he just reaches out his arms and he wants a hug. So
what a gift in being nonverbal that then it amplifies emotion expression.
Yes.
That when you are verbal, it's easier to hide behind words.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's our greatest teacher in patience and resilience and presence.
Yeah. I had a moment when we connected and I had only known you from In Bloom and peripherally and from mutual friends.
Yeah.
But when we connected and we started sending some voice notes, I thought to myself, I was like, okay, all the Real Love Ready stuff that you do, the conferences, the interviews, all of that, I thought, oh, it's not just a business for her. I thought, this is how she lives. I no longer saw you as like another influencer or another business person or someone who ran conferences. I thought, oh, she puts her money where she actually puts her mouth, her money where her mouth is? Like she actually shows up in the way that she teaches and the stuff that you believe in, And even though it wasn't like about romantic love, it was about love all encompassing.
Yes.
And loss and grief and all those other big themes. So when we connected, I was like, oh, this person is really living this,
I appreciate that. Thank you, John.
Yeah. And I felt like, oh, wow, I had a lot of respect for you because of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And when you called me, like, what was it? Like 2 months later, right?
Yeah.
And you were like, Robin, are you writing your book? Because I think you would love, because we were sending voicemails back and forth, voice memos. And I told you I was going to write a book.
Yeah.
But maybe I hadn't done it yet.
No, you hadn't done it yet. It was an idea and I was trying to push you.
Yeah, I'm like, what am I going to, and I kept saying to Hector, I was like, I know I want to write a book, but where do I start? How do I, oh my gosh, what do I do? And like, it was like 2 days later, John, I swear, this is the way the universe works. It's like you ask and you receive. Like, do you think like when we ask for help, when we ask for answers, we receive it. It's just a matter. It may not come through in the form that we expect, but that's the beauty of it, right? I mean, you phoned me 2 days later and left me a voicemail, and you were like, Robin, listen, I'm going to help you write your book. You said I'm putting on a course. You got to take it, and it's my gift to you. And I was like, holy shit, that's exactly what I need. Because I was like, if you don't know how to write a book, how do you know how to write a book? I need to learn how to write a book.
And you showed up?
And it was 6 weeks, and I started writing my book.
And you met Hillary and all the people that impacted
I sure did.
You went through the process. All these stars aligning that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And
I really started to write my book.
Yeah.
It was the perfect timing. It was divine.
And I was thinking like, okay, can I get her to here? Should I get her to an agent? What should I do? But also is it going to sell? Like all the business stuff was coming in. And I was like, should we just create our own publishing company? So I just threw it out not as it wasn't even a pitch. It was basically on a napkin. Hey, here, what do you think of this? And it aligned with you. We know in our field, a lot of people talk about manifestation, and a lot of people talk about it in a way that's hokey. And there's a lot of, so this is a manifestation.
Yes.
Of house burning down, us colliding, your desire to write a book, me trying to help you. No, and then all the other pieces that we weren't aware of that was happening. A lot of plate spinning that we weren't even aware of, and then all kind of coming together. And today when I picked this up for the first time, because I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
And I felt it. It's your words, and then seeing like the logo of the company that
Soulprint
that we created. And
let's talk about Soulprint for a minute, because Real Love Ready is the book that is here as our first publication of Soulprint's first publication.
Can I just say it? I'm so glad this was the first one.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Like it lines up with the story. Do you know what I'm saying? If it was any other book, it wouldn't feel organic to me. Like it had to have been this book.
Yeah, and
also about love.
And, Real Love Ready was born through me going to a Hay House, I Can Do It event.
Right.
And that night, I was with Jenny, my best friend, and I said to her, like, one day I'm going to host my own I Can Do It. Fast forward, 2020, and that was 7 years later, I created In Bloom.
Wow.
We hosted our first In Bloom.
Wow.
And so it's like we're doing the in-person events every year around love and relationships. And now we're going to be publishing works, authors, people that are writing stories, books, words, telling stories that are positively helping the world be a more loving place. I mean, raising consciousness. The people that are the change makers in the world, the people that are, my hope and prayer is that whatever we're doing with Soulprint, it's like we are going to be publishing people that are making this world a better place.
Sure.
I mean, and that's amazing. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, but I see us as conduits. I see us as catalysts. I see us as like love. When you decide to love someone, and by the way, love isn't easy. To build the greenhouse that is going to grow two people, that's really hard to do, right? Because ego has to get out of the way. We have to review our stories, our wounds, and all. I feel like with Soulprint, we're going to create kind of this greenhouse that's going to be bigger than its parts.
Oh, for sure.
The four of us. It's going to be bigger than that. It's going to be a catalyst or a conduit,
what I've really learned in my relationship with Hector, how it's like, because we're so intentional in our relationship, and you're doing this with Vanessa too. You guys, you talk about it, and if we're taking our learnings and applying them and doing our very best, like honestly, like with consciousness and with intention, when you're coming from love and you're both doing that, that's the power of love. It's exponential.
Yeah.
And I think of it as like it does. It just grows and it ripples. And that's the most beautiful thing because you don't know the result that it's going to be, but it will be positive.
It will be positive. It's going to, I also think it's going to challenge you, stretch you.
Yes.
There's always with love, at least for me, this inner fight between, I know who I should be and what that's going to lead to. But then there's also
this. Gosh darn, I don't want to do it.
There's also the shadow, right?
The shadow.
There's addiction. There's codependency. There's ego. There's so much.
There's pride.
That's just baked into us.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why a healthy relationship is actually rare, most people can't build that greenhouse.
And why do you think that is?
I mean, think about what it takes, right? And look, me and Vanessa, we're 8 years in. And even just before coming here today, we had a little bit of I wouldn't say a rupture, but a little bit of a hiccup that, that we talked about and that we're okay. But it takes you doing a self-inventory. That alone is like, most people do that when they hit like the gutter or they lose custody. Something has to happen where they're like, okay, I'm going to take an honest look at myself, right? So you have to do that. Then you have to start working on wounds. You have to start figuring out why you operate the way you do, why you're a reaction. You have to start redefining old love because we were programmed. And if I was tracing the love my parents had, we'd be sleeping in separate rooms and not being intimate. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would be yelling to Vanessa to get me water from the other side, like that kind of shit. So you have to redefine what love looks like. You have to co-create and customize that love. And I mean, the amount of work, it sounds overwhelming, but I am also not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but what in this life of value is easy?
Right.
Because the people that can actually do it, then I think the thing that they build is greater than the parts. It's its own living, breathing thing. And that love, that marriage, that whatever that is, now is growing the people inside it. I think very few get there. I think people can get the plane in the air and then it goes back down.
And they crash.
Yes. And look, I'm 53. I've been in many relationships, and I think this is the only one that has gotten to that kind of potential. Oh, the thing that we're building is greater than us. And here's the other thing I gotta say. It has to be a love where even if we don't work out,
you're still going to
love each other. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's also rare because people get divorced and they hate each other.
Yeah.
So they didn't build the thing.
Wow. They didn't build the thing.
if you break up and hate each other, the love that you built wasn't greater than you guys. Your ego was, or your resentment, or your hate, or your,
You know, I want to talk about how, I'm going to tell you a story about when David and I separated and divorced, my first husband. We're still close. And I wouldn't say like best friends, like that's not it. But I have deep love and admiration for him as a person, as a father, as somebody I spent 15 years of my life with. And thank God he was willing to meet me where I was at when I decided for us that I couldn't be in that marriage anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and when I told him, it was in October and I moved out in March. So we lived together under the same roof, slept in the same bed, because we didn't want to tell our kids till a certain time. Like we had decided we were going to go on one. I had to find a house. You know, there's things I had to do, right? To make sure that our family was going to be okay. And we grieved together, you know? We would lay in bed and cry.
Yeah.
For days and days and weeks, because it was freaking hard.
Sad.
And so sad. Like one of the most painful things I've ever gone through. Like you're grieving. I was grieving, obviously, our marriage. Like that I'm not gonna be able to say I'm your wife anymore. It makes me sad to think about, you know? Because we had good we had a good marriage until I realized I couldn't be in it anymore. You know, for many, many reasons, but
that's harder. So being sad, that is harder than just being angry at someone, or if someone did something wrong to break that.
I wasn't angry.
That's easier.
I didn't want to change him. I don't want to change him.
Right.
Like he is who he is.
Feelings changing is hard.
Yes.
That's hard. Yeah.
But I think that's like a misconception in this life. So many things that are misconceptions are, it's not understanding that just because I chose that I had to leave, it didn't feel like a choice anymore, John. That's the thing. It's like when my heart decided, well, if I would have stayed, I would be miserable. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. And I was like, so is that a choice? I don't know. I guess it is. But what I wanted to say is that the pain that I felt was so incredibly deep and it lasted for so it's like, just because I was the one that made the decision doesn't mean that I wasn't completely heartbroken.
Right. I find that the person that ends a relationship, it's harder for them, or at least for me, it's harder to end the relationship than to be the one that got left.
Oh, you think?
Yeah. I've left relationships, and I've left many too soon. To me, that's harder to live with than someone leaving me.
So can you talk about that, John, about leaving too soon? Like, how did you realize that later? Or like, was it that you could have tried harder? You could have okay, we should have gone to therapy. I could have.
I was in a relationship. This is before Vanessa. We lived together for 3 years. I knew something was wrong. Felt what you felt. But instead of talking about it, going to therapy, working through it, seeing if it can be salvageable or seeing if it could be saved. I was on Craigslist looking for an apartment.
And she didn't know.
I did tell her that maybe we should take a hiatus.
Oh, yeah.
And because she didn't convince me to stay, or because she didn't hold on to my leg, I used that to convince myself, oh, it's over, I'm out. And that was kind of the cowardly thing to do. And then, so I left. I didn't do anything. I left too soon. I didn't practice what I preached, which is, you gotta at least try to work on it until you guys realize, oh, this is not fixable. And on top of that, right after I left, 2 weeks into it, I made out with a mutual friend, and I was lonely, and I felt desired, and she was she was like the prom queen kind of, so I felt like chosen. The moon was out, we were on the beach, and then. So I got into something like way too soon. And so I'm saying that because I think there's a courtesy period. I just think it's cruel to end a relationship with someone that you shared a bed with for 3 years. And then 2 weeks later, because you're technically not together, to start being with someone else,
Yeah.
I think there is and you have to decide what that period is.
A courtesy period.
Yes. Yeah. Where you even if you don't like the person, or even if the person did something bad to you, you can't jump into something that fast. It's just not cool, you know?
Yeah.
And so I did that too.
So something I talk about in the book, and you talk about this too, it's just like this idea that it's like, if your relationship ends, like it's failed. You had a failed marriage. Did you hear that when you divorced your first wife?
Yeah, we need to eliminate that from our, the fact that a marriage has failed, or that you are now salvaged, or that you're too old to, you know, get married again. Like all that stuff, that programming, I think it can make us feel very less than and defective, you know? My divorce was the hardest thing I've ever gone through, but the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. That repositioning, like the burning down of my house, has given me so much. I don't know what I would, if I was still married, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I mean, would I still just be the miserable fuck writing screenplays, just older? Like what would I be doing?
Yeah.
You know, I think divorces and expired relationships and breakups are a rite of passage. I mean, for both of us, it was that divorce that led to the next act break in our life. You know, it led to our hero's journey. There's so much wisdom and learning about yourself you can have after a breakup. A lot of people skip that step, and that growth calcifies because they're already looking for love again. If you sit with it and buy books like Real Love Ready and do some work, the amount of gold you're going to get from that expired relationship is miracles, you know.
You know, I'm glad I'm sitting in front of a therapist because, you know, John, this is why when I divorced my second husband, or separated, and then obviously subsequently divorced him later, but when I didn't grieve the end of my marriage, it was like, thank God that marriage is over and I'm out. And, you know, it's going to be better for all of us involved because I ended that relationship.
Yeah.
The grief that I felt was like all like, how could I have let this happen? You know,
Right.
I thought that I knew better. You know, my first marriage ended, and I think the second marriage is going to be the be all and end all. And it turns out to be the worst relationship I've ever been in.
So a lot of self-blaming.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so that was the grieving. Like, I don't know if that's a grief. Is that grief? It sure was. It was a bad place to be. A very dark place to be.
Yeah.
Grieving a life that I thought that I thought I could have, but it was the absolute opposite.
Like telling yourself, I would never make that mistake again, and here I am, kind of thing.
Yeah, like even though I don't frame my first marriage as a mistake. I absolutely do not. Like it was beautiful. It was amazing. We've got our daughters. Like my love changed form for sure. But the second one, if you end up in a toxic, you know, unhealthy relationship after this happens to a lot of people.
Yes,
so,
but I wonder if
how could you blame yourself, right?
Yes. So
how could I not have known better?
I feel like that one was the bigger for you as far as catapulting you into this new version of yourself. Not the first. The first one was harder as far as the sadness and pain, because it's like a deep pain, mourning something that you guys have both built that was really good. But the second divorce, that was what I call the bathroom moment. That was the one. Yeah. So that was the call to action. And for me, I feel like that was the one, like my divorce, that was the one that not only made you grow and evolve, but also ignited a fire for you to help other people.
That's right. Awesome. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
I needed this light bulb moment.
Yeah. Because divorces are significant. Divorces are, like I said, a rite of passage.
I write about this in the book around how our past shapes how we relate, and how my behavior and my thinking, my belief systems around people pleasing and high functioning, like in a very, unhealthy dynamic. It was like, I can do this. I can fix it. You know, we just need therapy. I'm going to employ all of those communication skills that I've been learning in Real Love Ready. I mean, because I was learning from the best of the best. I mean, trust me, I can use my I feel statements and I statements and take accountability. But all those tools, all those skills, all those practices that I was thinking were going to make my relationship better, it wasn't moving the needle. It wasn't working. And there was, I was with somebody that was not meeting me halfway in any,
Going back full circle to why love is hard. you're only going to be 50% of any relationship. So you could be perfect, and there's no one perfect, but you could have all the tools, you could have read all the books, you could be self-actualized, you could be, I don't know, enlightened or whatever, but you're only going to be 50%
of the equation.
Like, so if there's nothing on the other side, you alone can't build a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it did really show a mirror back to me it was after that second divorce and like hitting rock bottom, really.
Yeah.
And feeling like, okay, I was doing the people pleasing and keeping my mouth silenced. Those behaviors were not, like, they were hurting me, and they certainly weren't serving the relationship.
Yeah.
So it really showed me, I'm not doing that in my next relationship or in any of my relationships.
The way that we learn the most is through experience. What a gift and a curse. Yeah.
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 So there's two questions that we ask. The first is, what is one myth that we need to unlearn when it comes to love ending? Or I think we already said it, love doesn't end. You said love doesn't end.
Yeah, it changes form. I think the myth that needs to be shattered is that a breakup means that your life is over, or that you're unlovable, or it means something about you. That's the myth. And I think that needs to be shattered. And I think the truth is relationships expire. And in that expiration, there's so much growth, but only if you are willing to look inward and examine self. If you don't, then what a waste. What a waste of a broken heart. What a waste of loss. What a waste of, you know what I'm saying? So if you have the courage to examine why the plane went down, I don't know if there's anything else in our life that will grow you as much than after a breakup.
Wow. John, what would you say is your definition of love?
Oh, I saw this ad years ago. I'll tell it visually. I was flipping through a magazine, and I think it was like a Viagra ad or something, but it was two old people in their 80s in separate bathtubs. I think they were in the Grand Canyon, looking in the same direction, and they were only connected by their hands holding on the outside. And I remember I saw that, I was like, oh, that's what healthy love looks like. Yeah. Two people that have done life together, looking in the same direction, looking down like they've come a long way, and they're in their own tubs and they're holding hands, right? Yeah. I thought love was two people in a jacuzzi, sitting on top of each other, facing each other, right? Super hot water, right? And there's no scenery. They're just in the jacuzzi.
It's just the two of you in your own little universe.
Yeah, because that's hot, that's sexy. And when I saw that image, I was like, I think that's what love looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful image. I love it. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for this time and for teaching me so much and being my friend. And also, like, we're business partners now. It's like, it's all the things, John. It's amazing.
Thank you for being a catalyst, not only to me, but to so many people in the world.
You too.
And now with this book, The Reach,
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Thank you.
Follow us at Real Love Ready and at Soulprint Media Co. on social media, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The Real Love Ready series is a Soulprint Media production, presented by BetterHelp, hosted by me, Robin Ducharme. Executive producers are Robin Ducharme, John Kim, Tara Malhotra Feinberg, Hilary Swanson. Produced by Miriam Debbie Talbot, Tara Malhotra Feinberg. Directed by Miriam Debbie Talbot. Edited by Susie Landers O'Connell. Director of Photography, Scott Simic.